Hello and welcome to the big picture. The controversy over whether field trials of the genetically modified crops should be conducted in this country or not has once again cropped up, following the statement of Minister for Environment and Forests, Veerap Moily. Mr. Moily has clearly indicated that his ministry will now file a joint affidavit with the Agriculture and Earth Sciences Ministry before the Supreme Court to allow field trials of GM crops. Moily's stand is opposed to the stand taken by his predecessor Jayanti Natarajan, who had refused to sign on a joint affidavit before the Supreme Court. For long, those who are opposed to the introduction of GM crops have been fighting a battle with both the government and the multinationals who are eyeing India to introduce these crops. Now, with the government speaking in one voice, what would be the outcome of it in the apex court, which is seized of the matter? Is it time now for the field trials to be allowed? And if so, what would be the impact of it? We will discuss all this today with Suman Sahai, Chairperson, Gene Campaign, Dr. N. Seetharama, Executive Director, Association of Biotech-led Enterprises, Agriculture Group, Krishan Chaudhary, President, Bharatiya Krishak Samaj, Dr. Tajamul Haque, former Chairman, Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices in the Ministry of Agriculture, and Chetan, Chauhan, Associate Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Suman, I would like to come to you first. Now that the Ministry of Environment seems to have changed its mind, there is no confusion anymore within the government as it was all these days and months and years. Now you think that, what do you think will be the impact of it?
The impact will take the agenda forward, and I think the agenda must go forward to a resolution. You can't stall something to reach a conclusion. As a scientist, that field trials should be conducted, I would say yes. But the answer is, are you going to do indiscriminate research on gajar and gobi and bengan and aloo and tomato, everything under the sun? That is silly. So field trials must be prioritized, matched with the country's needs and the needs of farmers who have to cultivate these crops, and then field trials must be continued in following proper guidelines, which has not happened so far. I think a lot of the objection has been field trials have been conducted without following the country's guidelines.
Where are the field trials have been conducted where?
Everywhere. For the crops, depending on the crop, where those crops are to be grown is where the field trials will be conducted.
Will be conducted, but
have also been conducted until the stoppage in 2013. Field trials were being conducted everywhere, and with the most blatant disregard for regulation, norms, safety concerns in the middle of farmers' fields. You can't do that. So when you say field trials must continue, you say contingent to following in the strictest possible way.
That has been spoken about. That is being spoken about. Even the minister has spoken about.
It's one thing to speak.
Having some kind of a protocol and monitoring and things like that.
That's been there since 1989. Nobody's been following it. So I don't get hugely confident that just because some minister has said that it will be followed now, that it will be. I think we have to give a lot of attention to the fact that biosafety concerns are of paramount importance. They have to be complied with. You cannot be careful enough. The precautionary principle must be invoked at every stage. And if the practitioners of this technology are not willing to do that, then their licenses must be cancelled.
We are jumping ahead, talking of licenses being cancelled. The Biotechnology Regulatory Authority bill is in play, is in the standing committee. All those. I'm sure some of the concerns which you're expressing must be dealt with in the BRI bill. Anyway, since it is still before the standing committee, there's still scope for changes in that. Dr. Seetharama, you think that this is a positive development as far as the industry is concerned, and you think that there will be any more hurdles, or you think this will be the final hurdle has been overcome as far as the problem within the government which used to be there earlier?
I think for once you must give the credit to the government to the right thing. Testing is different, it is not commercialization yet. And without testing, would you like to ride a car? Nobody would like to do it. Second thing is, as Suman is saying, yes, there has to be proper precautions taken, rules and regulations followed, there's a good monitoring, there's the governance issues. This is the evolving technology. So you give that even the regulation itself is evolving worldwide, not just here. Now look at even European Union. They may not be liking GM crops, but they never prevent people from testing. And science should continue under proper regulation, proper supervision.
Do you agree with Suman what she says that what testing done so far has been done indiscriminately in all kinds of places? There has not been proper monitoring. So to what extent the companies which are involved in this are responsible for it?
So not just companies, but even the public institution. I was working in a public institution. I have myself conducted testing. Yes, there have been some lapses here and there. People are improving. They're improving a lot.
Everywhere.
Still, no, it can't be everywhere. I don't agree with that. There has been a very, very thorough test. In fact, some tests are certainly that much of precaution not required. For example, when we test microorganisms for pregnant, I don't do it at our institute. We go to altogether different institute, the oilseed institute, where no cereal crop is grown, and do it in the center of the field, which is at least 1 kilometer away from the fences, and the whole area is fenced, it's supervised, it's visited by the regulator, we inform the state government, and all these things are happening.
That
Agree,
can be one
that can be
example.
improvement, agree.
But there are
And
many bad
better
examples.
monitoring, yes. But this doesn't mean you throw the baby with the bathwater.
But there is still a lot of opposition to the, Dr. Tajamul Haque, you think that the government has crossed a very big hurdle with this? You think it's the right step which the government is taking now, going before the Supreme Court and giving a joint affidavit, and you think that is the last hurdle?
I don't think this is the last hurdle, but anyway, government I think it is very natural for the government to do it that way. I don't find it very surprising kind of thing. But the point is, before we say that whether field trial of GM crops should be there or not, first of all, I think we should ask ourselves whether we are really sure that GM technology should be promoted. Second thing is,
there's a lot of people who are still.
So if you are not very clear about it, from the point of view of biodiversity, from the point of biosafety, from the point of view of known and unknown health risks that can come, unless you do proper research, first of all, I mean, you are not going ahead. Unless you decide that stage first, and then you talk of field trial. Field trial of any technology is important. Whether it is biotechnology or traditional technology or HIV technology or anything that you do, I think there are field trials, and then once it is proven to be good, high yielding, without risk, then I think it is recommended. So I am not against field trial as such, but the point is, first we decide the very basic merit of
You are saying that basic merit of whether it should be, we should do it, we should have GM crops at all or not, is still not a settled issue. It's still not a settled issue.
It's not a settled issue.
Krishan Chaudhary, as a farmer, as a farmers organization, how do you look at this whole thing? Do you agree with Dr. Tajamul Haque that it's still not a settled issue?
I 100% agree with Dr. Haque. He is 100% right, and I agree with Dr. Suman Sahai also. Where is the laboratory have investigated what will the impact on human
What do you agree about what Suman Sahai said? Suman Sahai is in favor of field trials.
There is no regulation have been adopted by any company. In Madhya Pradesh, I have seen practically myself, in Bihar, in Uttar Pradesh, in Haryana. In 4 states, we have seen. They are not bothered for any norms, and they are going in fields and.
Mr. Chaudhary, I think that is a settled issue. Dr. Seetharama has admitted that there have been such problems in the past, and we are talking of an era when the biotechnology regulatory authority will be in place, and that is supposed to look at all these issues. My question to you is, as a farmer, do you think that because Dr. Haque is raising a fundamental issue that whether we need the GM crops at all?
I am raising the same issue.
Yes.
That this technology is not for the farming community.
Is not?
Not.
Okay.
It's only for corporates. Due to intellectual property regime, they want that whole seed to be governed by them under Patenting Act. And farmers will be the worst sufferer, and where will be stand the food security? Always we are discussing food security. Seed is a basic need. If we surrender the seed to these multinational corporations, then where we will stand in food security? This is my question. And second thing, that is it possible for Indian farmers that 50 meter by 50 meter all around in every field can be kept? No.
What can be kept? What?
It's a reserve area.
Achha.
It's a reserve area.
And in a country where we have more small and marginal farmers, whether it's feasible. Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, it's not feasible.
So the question is that of creating a refuge so as to delay the development of resistance. If you don't do that, if you don't create the refuge, then the insects and the pests are going to become resistant very quickly.
That's right. But he's raising a fundamental question whether the farmers can afford to allow that amount of land.
I think that is a valid question.
Yes, Dr. Seetharam?
Let me suggest that.
Yes.
You are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. you are so much prejudiced against the one single technology which has been commercialized in India, which itself is a real success. You can debate it.
You're talking of the BT cotton.
BT cotton. There are hundreds of new techniques, new methods, new trade, new combinations. But the fundamental thing we remember is always the GM technology chosen under three circumstances. One is which crop you are going to deal with, which trait you are going to deal with, where you are going to deal with. Second, even after commercialization, there is a constant monitoring. There is a correction process.
Which is not happening.
You're saying that
no, it can improve.
What you're saying is
it's
the
not
ideal
happening.
situation which needs to be there, but
No.
what everybody is saying that there's no ideal. Yes, Dr. Haque.
I think the fundamental question here is that, I mean, the reliability and or beneficial effect of GM, particularly GM food kind of thing, has not been properly investigated and established. So there is no conclusive evidence so far that this is really safe. So once this is not there, I mean, what is the question of unnecessarily wasting your time? And why I am saying this, that there are better alternatives. Whether IPM could have been a proper strategy, whether organic farming could have been a strategy, and whether a mix of all this could have been a strategy. Why? Again, we are promoting this, as Krishnavich said, that it is basically keeping in mind the interest of the multinational companies.
Suman, do you agree with that?
No, I think the question, yes and no. We have to look at what the problems of Indian agriculture are. Once you have identified those problems, you need to find solutions. Now, obviously, GM cannot be a solution to every problem in Indian agriculture, but that's the way we are going. If you find that other ways of solving those problems are not working, then GM becomes an option to try. But what we are doing is everything under the sun is being genetically modified. I don't think any other country has got this kind of loony agenda.
That focus
From even
loony agenda. Well, I'll come back to you. Let me get Chetan in on this. Chetan, what do you think? Do you think that this whole business, when the government or the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Moili now says that they have finally come to they are speaking in one voice now. You think that the government is responding to this whole issue in a positive way? You think that, or you think that, as Dr. Haque is raising some fundamental questions, and Krishan Chauधरी says that it is not in the interest of the farmers?
No, I think that the government is responding to the corporate world, the GM companies, like it has responded in case of giving clearances to so many projects. In the same way, they are responding to GM crops. A committee of secretaries was appointed which have given us suggestion guidelines on safety protocol. I fail to understand how can a committee of secretaries decide on a biosafety protocol, and how can they give guidelines on safety of GM crops. It is the work of scientists. The scientists should do it. And secondly, I want to point out the entire GM regulation in India is in mess. The Environment Ministry or the Ministry of Earth Sciences or Department of Science and Technology doesn't have any sort of mechanism to monitor whether the ministry regulations or the government regulations are implemented. As some of the speakers said, the guidelines have been flouted in states, and no action or minimum action has been taken against the GM companies.
Chetan, 1 second. When you're talking of regulations and monitoring and things like that, don't you think that the BRI bill, the Biotechnology Regulatory Authority bill,
the BRI bill,
yes,
the BRI bill doesn't tackle the issue of monitoring adequately. There has to be a third party monitoring mechanism. You cannot allow an institute which has been funded by a GM company to monitor. The conflict of interest issue in the entire GM regulation is a huge issue, and the government has failed to deal with it.
Okay. Dr. Seetharama?
I think there are lots of myths here.
Dr. Seetharama,
saying that every GM product is only promoted by multinational company. It isn't true. 50 of the trials they're thinking all from public institutions, the public money. Government is also investing a lot of money. Secondly, if you think the multinational companies are forcing this through, they are investing their money. And what is the problem? They are testing. After testing, you can decide whether you want the product or not.
Flouting regulatory guidelines is the problem.
No, that is not excuse. I'm not defending it. You have a regulatory process.
Farmers asking
you
for money from
implement it.
multinational companies? The farmers asking for the food crops of GM crops? Which farmer are you asking?
See, this kind of issue cannot be decided by any one particular stakeholder alone.
Jairam Ramesh visited the whole country.
Listen,
Why Jayanti Natarajan have not permitted? This is the big question.
Jayanti Natarajan was against it because what was influencing her decision, and why do you think the decision has changed now?
No, I don't know what was influencing Jayanti Natarajan's decision, but I think at any time precaution.
Then I think you should get Chetan. Do you have an answer to that?
I can tell
Yes.
that Jayanti Natarajan has heard the voice of the other section also,
Okay.
which the present incumbent is not hearing. The voice of one section which are promoting GM crops is being heard. The voice of farmers, a large section of the society which may get affected if in case the GM food crops are not safe, was heard by both Mr. Ramesh and Jayanti Natarajan.
I would say Jayanti Natarajan came out on the side of precaution. So she held back something that has...
The charge against her that she was overcautious.
Exactly.
I don't
exactly
think,
the
I
point.
think in the field of a technology that is recognized to be transformative, a technology where scientists themselves have asked for regulation. I wish to point this out. People seem to think...
No, Suman, please tell me, what is your objection? Your objection is to the lack of regulation, or your objection is because Dr. Haque's objection and Dr. Krishan Chaudhary's objection is based fundamental whether we need GM crops at all or not. You don't have that
Girish, I think that has to be, the first thing I said was you have to assess whether you need it.
Okay.
Here is a problem.
So has
Do
there
you
been
need
no
GM?
assessment according to you, according to your own studies, according to your own work? Do you think that India needs at least partly GM modified crops?
I don't think you can answer that unless you look at the problem that particular crop in that particular area is facing. When you have identified that problem, then you have to assess.
So you're saying that it can't be a hold-all policy for the entire country.
Exactly.
That in
Who
any
is
case,
saying
but
that
I
this
think
hold-on
you
policy?
start at step one and say, this is my problem. These are the possible solutions. Can they solve this problem? And when you say none of these solutions can solve the problem, should I try GM technology? But GM technology in our case is being used as the first option for everything.
That is the problem.
Which is a major
I don't
problem.
agree with this. If you think you already have a technology, for example, at the time of independence, we're 100% organic. Okay, even people opposed putting up the Sindri urea factory. Now, can you feed this country with this kind of technology? Also, remember the future
feed
problems.
the country
Now,
by
70%
controlling
of water is used for
lepidopteran
agriculture.
pests.
In future, only 50% available. If you want to provide basic drinking water and sanitary water, there isn't water in most part of the country, even in Indo-Gangetic belt. How are you going to
Let me
address
just
these
come back to the
problems?
feeding of this country is the biggest rhetoric that is doing the
Dr.
rounds.
Seetharama, I have one
On the
question.
feeding of
I'll
the
come to
country.
you. One second. You're calling it a rhetoric.
Yes.
Don't you see any truth, any truth in what
There
they're
is
saying?
feeding of the country
Because-
is an
no.
issue or not issue, but GM technology is not related to it. I don't think that case can be made anywhere.
No,
we have BT
Suman, my question is this.
Yeah.
Do you agree that we will have to produce more and more in the coming years?
Yes.
And do you think that the existing way of cultivation is good enough to feed the mouths which we will have
Of double the population,
of double or 50% more?
all you do is bring water.
From where?
3/4 of your agriculture is rain-fed. If you
Dr.
do not do
Dr.
rain, you can't plant a GM seed in dry soil and expect it to grow.
Doctor,
I think so. There are alternatives, and even
no, but you agree that we need to produce more in the coming years.
we need to produce more, but there are better options, better than even GM, I should say. The way they are trying and focusing on the whole issue on GM. Second thing is that even the kind of climate change we are talking about, biotic and abiotic stresses that will come. I mean, just merely having BT on brinjal and BT on this and that will not solve your problems. Our problems are different. Our farmers need a particular local specific cropping pattern, depending on whatever the agroclimatic situation is.
And it changes from district to district or
district
within the district also.
from time to time.
Within a district
And
also.
from time to
No,
time.
the bottleneck
And then
is
suddenly,
water.
another fundamental question is that you cannot make our farmers dependent on monopoly right over seeds.
That is a different
issue.
That's not the
That's
issue.
the basic issue.
Yes.
Then
Can I just clarify one thing on
Sir,
this
you're
fundamental
afraid of
right to
that.
seed?
Let
Can I just
me
clarify?
say.
I'll come to you. Let her
The
make the point. I'll come to
fundamental
you.
right over seed will be determined by the national legislation. That option is always in your hand.
Yes,
No
exactly.
cooperation. no international agreement can determine how you will treat your seed
Suman,
unless you decide
Are
to
we-
sell
are
out
No,
yourself.
it is not decided that way. The point is, it is the market which decides, and market is controlled by the monopoly houses. And
That is the fear.
Yeah, that is the,
That is the fear.
that
It's
the
already
reality.
happened.
Not the fact.
Currently, who
Not
does
the
it?
fact.
No, this is the fact.
This is
Currently,
the-
Monsanto
this is the
has the
accept- this is
total
the fact.
property rights
All over the world.
whatever you
Why
are doing.
Monsanto has a monopoly? Because you never allowed others to test even.
Others will not be allowed by Monsanto.
How do you know that?
Others will
How
not
do
be
you know
allowed.
that?
One example.
This is-
I
Yes.
quote one example.
Unnecessary
Dr.
allegation.
Dr. Seetharam,
No substance.
Dr. Seetharam,
Seetharam,
Dr. Seetharam,
one
I'll
example
come to you.
quote.
Yes.
The Monsanto have agreed with the farming community, and they never supply for 5 lakh hectare area of BT cotton seed. And Dr. Seetharama, I ask one question, that without water availability, is it possible to grow GM crops? No, not at all.
For any crop-
commit
for any crop, can it grow?
Second thing, soil health and water management. These are the two components. If we need the productivity to be increased, without these two components, no production can be increased in
Not only
agriculture
that,
sector. It's a fact.
the problem of
And-
soil toxicity
and
that
soil
has come
toxicity.
as a result of BT.
Soil toxicity.
Chetan, Chetan,
Very
would you like-
dangerous.
Hello.
Chetan,
Yeah.
Chetan, the Dr. Seetharam, who represents the the GM industry, he says that this kind of the fear which is being expressed, they are only trying to create a fear. It doesn't really stand scrutiny. What is the reality? Is the reality the fear of multinationals is the major reality, or we have still not arrived at a situation where we can say that at least partly we need GM crops in this country?
No, if we have to ensure food security and issues, I think trying GM technology is not a bad idea.
Right.
But before doing that, we have to ensure that the entire regulatory mechanism is transparent, accountable, participatory. You cannot force people to use GM food crops or GM seeds the way it has been done in case of BT cotton in many states.
But
Or
BT
monopolistic-
cotton is there.
in many states, in some states, a monopolistic situation has been created,
Right.
where you will not get seed of any other company. Only one company seed will be available.
Right.
It has to be a totally transparent mechanism if we have to allow GM crops. And before the push is given, you have to set up a framework for a participatory approach and accountable approach for introduction of GM crops. I think in case of BT cotton also, this participatory, transparent approach is not there. Consent of people is must to enforce or to allow any sort of new technology.
So you think that the Biotechnology Regulatory Authority bill does not have enough safeguards about what you're talking about?
None.
No.
None.
I think
None.
that BRI, the present bill, the present format needs to be trashed, and it has to be done in a totally a different manner.
It is
I
before
think the
that.
BRI bill helps companies or people who are promoting GM crops more than the farmers or other stakeholders in
Do
this
you?
business.
I mean, have you? It is before the standing committee in Parliament. There, I'm sure that that all these objections are being raised before the standing committee. We will see how what
but
kind of a
We've
report the
been
standing
through this
committee.
exercise 3 times with the bribe
You
bill.
have.
We've been
Yes,
through
but-
this.
but
It's
Dr.
still, I think the biggest sin that the bribe bill commits is of utter confusion, overlapping jurisdictions, so that if I want to go to court, I can lock you up for the next 25 years just on every clause of the bribe bill. It's so bad.
Dr. Seetharam, you have several questions to answer. One of the question is that, this monopoly situation is one which everybody is concerned about. Second thing is that, this monitoring and regulation of it. These are two major issues. How much does the industry itself has taken interest in ensuring that there is a level playing field and this monopoly situation will not prevail?
Exactly. Let's come back to the BT cotton itself.
Right.
There are alternate technologies available. But,
But,
farmers have to give it a choice. If they want it, they can use it. Now,
But are you?
now, let me
do
say,
you agree?
Not in
Do you
real
agree
life,
with
they're
Dr.
not
Haque?
available.
Do you agree with Dr. Haque saying that in the case of BT cotton and also Krishan Chaudhary saying that there has been a virtually a monopoly kind of situation by Monsanto? You agree with that?
well, if their material has been very successful, that even if it's successful, it's fine. But doesn't mean others can't bring equally good material. Give the
first
chance to
thing
others.
we-
and
No,
bring
but
it.
do you agree that there has
we
been a
can-
monopoly
one-
situation?
one
And
second.
there is no seed available in
Listen,
Hyderabad. The farmers
universities,
suffer, must
ICR
suffer.
institution ready to supply seed. There is no demand for breeder seed of any traditional
No,
variety
you
or
are,
hybrid.
Mr. Dr. Seetharam, you belong to the Association of Biotech-led Enterprises,
Yes.
which consists of many companies, including Monsanto.
Yes.
If I see.
So what?
So how does the industry itself, this association itself, ensure that there is no monopoly, or you think that the market forces will come
market.
into play, and in that a major multinational corporation will just follow up the others?
No, sir. You
Fact
got
is,
just one
Monsanto is
product
the only
now,
company that's
that's
making
why you
money
got-
and they
you
lead
got this kind of
everybody else
impression.
but the nose.
You look at United States, for example. There is no monopoly. Anybody can play. You have a good product. You can also go and sell it. You can also license it. That-
Seetharamanji, Monsanto was going to sell this technology on 25 crore rupees only, and now in 2011, 2012, from they have got technology royalty fee 450 crore
Exactly
rupees from
point.
18 Indian companies. And where is the Indian market, Indian corporate,
Thank you,
public
sir.
sector? Nobody is playing.
Thank
One
you,
second,
sir.
yes.
So pointing out this fact. We, if you have been wise enough, we would have taken it for 25 crore rupees and have monopolized ourselves. Why
should-
have not done it?
That when
I
you
think-
say that we
Why-
should have
why-
taken
no,
up,
no, I
one
think-
second, who should have taken it up? The government, it was the responsibility of the government, or the private
At that
companies,
part- no, at-
private Indian companies
Indian
have failed?
companies.
Government.
Let me tell you, many members of our companies are also licensing technology, not just from USA, not just from Monsanto, but many other institutions around the world.
Yes,
They're
yes,
also
Dr.
generating
Dr.
it. They're also getting
Why
IP.
Even in the case of BT Cotton here, it is Monsanto which holds the entire right. Others are just license holders and traders.
No, there are other
This
technology.
is one. Second thing is that globally, not only for BT or these, I mean, for some of the processed foods and things like that in the agriculture sector, it is some of the multinational companies who control the entire thing, right from seed to all other inputs. And the risk is for a country like ours, particularly in the case of seed. We are discussing seed. Seed, the problem is that once the farmers lose that kind of basic right, and then they just disappear. And that is what we want anyway. The whole policy orientation ours is that after say 10, 15 years or 20 years from now, there will be hardly 10% farmers. All will be the slaves of multinational companies or the local corporate bodies.
I mean,
They will be
talking about
doing
monopoly-
doing agriculture.
Sir,
Talking
let
about
me-
monopoly,
This
if you
quite
look
a,
at-
I mean, you are painting a very alarming picture.
If you look at the
Do you
GM
agree with Dr. Haque that such an alarming situation could develop?
No, I agree with him because the government of India's policy is to drive people off the farms. So I don't think we
Why
need
why would the government of India want people to drive
Because the
on
government
farm?
of India is trying
Because,
to
you know,
match
on
the
one
14%
hand-
GDP.
No, let us on the one hand there is this.
But that's a separate
there-
issue, Girish, to
no,
the
no, on
IGM issue.
Right. On the one hand, the government has come out with this Food Security Act, which has
Which
to
it should
provide for
never have,
security.
but that's
so
a separate
in
issue.
this kind of a situation, how will that food security be ensured?
Just for
Not
example,
but food security
we
issue.
import raw sugar. What happened? The wheat have not been grown in the field. This is the present situation
Okay.
of the
No, never mind
country.
about the Food Security Act. Have you connected the farmer to the Food Security Act? You haven't.
Yeah,
You're only talking about distribution. So in any case, it's a completely befuddled act.
Okay. And Dr. Seetharam, you think that if Food Security Act has to succeed, GM crops have to be allowed?
Oh God.
GM is one of the constituents
Fake.
in many
Because that is the
states,
argument.
it is
Some of
the
you
constituent which
started
can
off
make
with
the
that
difference
argument.
to
You started off with that argument.
No.
Ah.
Nobody can say that GM is the only, the panacea is the only solution. It has to be embedded in the overall packages you
yes.
are going to deliver to farmer.
Okay. Chetan, last words to you very quickly. Do you see the government now going ahead with allowing these field trials? Do you think that there are any hurdles which it could still face?
No, I think the first hurdle will be the court because the next hearing is in April.
Right.
So there and the harvest season will also start at the same time.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see whether the government will be able to convince Supreme Court and allow field trials before the next harvesting
Sowing
season.
Okay.
And the elections are also coming.
Yes.
Once the elections comes and the new government is formed, I think the decision will be taken by the new government.
Okay. The decision will be taken by the new government, but before that, the Supreme Court will have to say what it has to say. We'll wait and watch, but this is a debate which will continue. And as we have seen today, it's a very heated debate because there are still very different opinions on whether GM crops should be allowed in this country at all or not. And before that, the field trial should be allowed or not itself is is a major debate in this country. Thanks to all my guests, Suman Sahai, Dr. Seetharama, Tajamul Haque, Krishan Chaudhary and Chetan Chauhan. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in Big Picture, same time tomorrow.